Hi, my name's Janelle, and in this series I'm going to be showing you how to go from knowing absolutely zero about sewing to being able to make your own wardrobe. I don't use big words or overcomplicate things. I just plan on showing you what I've learnt over a decade of making my own clothes and share all the tips and tricks I've learnt along the way to make sewing a whole lot easier. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to gather fabric. I've made my fair share of gathered dresses since I started my sewing journey, and so I'm going to be showing you my favourite tried and true method, as well as some time-saving hacks that can help make gathering a little easier. The first gathering method I'm going to show you is my personal favourite way to gather fabric, as in my opinion, it gives the best looking and most consistent gathering. For this method, you'll need to stitch 2 rows of gathering stitches onto your fabric, and for this example, I'm gathering along the top of my fabric in order to create a gathered skirt for the dress I'm making. To create a gathering stitch, you'll simply need to set your sewing machine stitch length to the longest possible setting, which in my case is 5, and then simply sew 2 rows onto whatever it is you'd like to gather. For my gathered skirt, I simply line up the presser foot of my sewing machine along the top edge of the fabric and stitch along the entire top edge. To stitch the second row of gathering, I then line up my presser foot to the previous row of stitches to ensure the rows of stitching are nice and straight. Make sure to leave a tail of thread that measures at least 10 centimeters or 4 inches at each end of the stitch rows. Now to actually gather up the fabric, separate the thread tails so that you're only working with the top threads. Then gently hold onto the threads and push the fabric along the threads to gather up the fabric. To make this part easier, it's best to work in halves, so gather the first half of your fabric until roughly the center point, and then repeat this process for the opposite end. Having 2 rows of gathering stitches makes the actual gathering part of this method so much easier compared to just having the 1 row. Once gathered all the way, you can optionally tie the thread tails into a knot to ensure the gathering won't come undone. This method is by far the most time consuming out of the 3 methods I'll be sharing in this video, but I definitely think it's worth all of the time and the effort, and if you want a really consistent looking gather, then this is the method I recommend. Now let me show you a method that is a lot less time consuming. For this method, you will again need to set your sewing machine stitch length to the longest possible setting. Start stitching onto your fabric where you will be gathering, but while stitching, pick up and hold onto your machine's thread. Holding onto the thread like this alters the tension slightly, and the fabric will begin to gather as a result. The result isn't as perfect as method 1 in my opinion, but is still a great way to gather fabric if you're in a bit of a time crunch. Now let me show you the third method, which I actually think is the best hack for gathering fabric. For this method, you will need to use a gathering foot. You can buy separate specialized presser feet for your sewing machine, and the gathering foot is definitely one you'll want to add to your collection if you gather fabric a lot like I do. When using a gathering foot, you will need to again set your sewing machine's stitch length to the longest possible setting, and you will need to set your machine's tension to the highest setting too, which in my case is 8. Then attach the gathering foot to your sewing machine, and then simply start sewing. As you sew, the gathering foot will automatically gather up your fabric. This method is super speedy, and the end result is actually really impressive. So I hope you found this video helpful and that you now feel confident to go and gather up some fabric. If you've been watching all of the videos in this series up until now, you now have all the skills and knowledge needed to make my pansy dress pattern, which is one of my all-time favorite patterns and honestly such a great pattern for beginners. So I'll have that linked below if you'd like to go and give it a try. If you learned something new in this video, then I would really love it if you could give it a like. And in the next episode of this series, I'm going to be teaching you how to sew buttonholes and buttons. So make sure you subscribe to my channel so you don't miss out on that. Have a lovely day and thanks for watching.